Okay, so I put a post up saying questions and answers, and if there was anything you guys wanted to know. So I've got a few bits and bobs on my phone and on a piece of paper that people have asked. So the first question, which we'll be answering, Sam asks, what brake horsepower do I think would spoil the M3 as a track car? I would honestly say the chassis is probably good for 700 brake before it starts ruining things, but even at 650 I find myself having to feather the throttle a bit if the conditions aren't the best. So to be honest with you, I think I don't think I want to go more than 650. It's getting it all down on the straights, yeah, no problems, but I think if you're trying to squeeze it through the corners, then you might be asking just a little bit too much. A lot of people would disagree and say, you know, that's far too much horsepower, but so far so good, I'm happy with it. Also from Sam, why is it so cold in my unit? I'll tell you why it's so cold in my unit, because heating's fucking expensive, Sam. That's why it's so cold in my unit. Sam actually fits eco boilers, so send me an eco boiler, Sam. That Fiji Vert, he's got a E36 Cabriolet on Instagram, and he wants to know how much did it cost to fit the 2JZ engine, and who did the custom loom. So I'll do a bit of a walk round of the car and I'll explain some of the costs involved with building it. Hello! Oh, we've been interrupted by the world famous Gaz. What's your Instagram name, Gaz?
Nothing.
Tell me, what is it?
It's Cut Loose S15.
Cut Loose S15 has joined us. Right, so back again. As you may notice, it's actually dark now. Had a little visit from Gaz, Cut Loose S15 on Instagram, worth a follow. Quality driver, great car, lovely maintained drift car as well. So it was good to catch up with Gaz. But back to the questions and answers. So I think I was at a lad called That Fiji Vert on Instagram. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. And he wanted to know how much did it cost to J swap the M3, which I think I'll cover that by doing the walk round on the car. And he also asked, it must have a custom loom. Who did the custom loom? Well, I'll cover that in detail when we walk around the car, but it was actually DWR Performance and a good friend of ours, Gaz Thomas. Gaz Thomas did the wiring basics for the car, you know, all the headlights, tail lights, all of that kind of stuff independently. He actually made the loom up on the floor, made everything work on the floor, took out everything that wasn't needed, including modules, managed to drop about 40 kilos out of the car, and then it was, after the car was painted, the loom was installed and he got that all working, and left the fuse board open for DWR to come in and do the engine loom. They actually got all new plugs for the engine and built an engine loom for the Link G4 ECU that was specific to the car, and it's a really, really tidy job. So if you are looking for standalone ECU and custom loom, can't recommend them highly enough, to be honest. Everything that's been done by DWR on all of my vehicles has been absolutely faultless. They did the wiring and the mapping on the Clio Turbo, the M3, and most recently they've done Link G4 ECU on the S14 Drift Pig. So yeah, good guys. I can't recommend them highly enough. And these came in from a guy from Australia actually, and I do my best to answer sort of everything that comes in through Instagram, but we do get quite a lot of messages coming in, so sometimes it's a little bit hard to keep up with, but I do always try and get back to everybody, even if it's not necessarily work related. Okay, so Tomlinson Samuel on Instagram, I have actually spoke to you. I gave you my phone number and we've had a little chat via WhatsApp and a phone call. He's from Australia and he had a lot of questions about the Kangoo, but some of the questions which I've had quite commonly asked are the placement for the turbo and manifold and how it affects where the brake servo is on the Kangoo, the gearbox on the Kangoo and how we made the Clio box fit the Kangoo, engine mounts with the box on the Kangoo, and because we've done both a 5-speed Clio box on a Kangoo and a 6-speed on the Clio, had a lot of questions about the difference in the conversion, so I thought I'd just do a quick walk round on the Kangoo and just sort of show you in a little bit more detail and highlight how we address those issues. A lot of the wiring on the Kangoo was done by Gaz Thomas. I actually got the Kangoo up and running myself, and then Gaz come in and he helped us with the conversion for the loom to the headlights and the central lock-in and the rear lights and a few other bits and bobs. It works off the key card, so it's got pretty much the entire Megane turbo loom in the car, including the clocks. The accelerator pedal actually mounted the Megane accelerator pedal, and I just swapped the Clio pedal onto the Megane electronics so that it still sort of works and lines up with the Kangoo. A Kangoo and a Clio are fundamentally the same, really, to be honest. That's why the 172 conversion's so easy. Let's pop the hood, opens from the back. So, the questions that we've been asked. Yes, the turbo sits at the back of the engine bay on a Megane, and so does the brake servo on a Clio and a Kangoo. So they're really, really close to each other. On the Clio that we did, we actually put a pedal box in to completely clear the back of the engine bay to eliminate that problem. I was hoping not to do that on the Kangoo, so we explored some different options. So what I actually ended up doing was just making the reservoir remote. So we just took the reservoir off the top of the brake servo and extended the pipes, made a bracket so that comes up and out the way nicely, and then heat shielded all around it, which you can't really see that well because it's a little bit dark. Let me get the torch. So there you go, you can see that's all heat shielded in. So there's a decent bit of clearance on it as well. So we chopped the flange off the turbo downpipe and just bought a selection of tubing and actually made a bigger downpipe than what the engine originally had. So I would say it's an improvement. Yes, the angle coming off the turbo is fractionally tighter than it was before, but it is in a bigger diameter. So it's probably as good, if not better, than the original downpipe, and that's how we got around the clearance issue. So a Megane engine, how similar is it to a Clio engine? It's pretty similar, to be honest with you. The block is near enough identical, and the head is very similar as well. So we were actually able to use Clio 172 top mount, which bolts up to the Kangoo, because the Clio and the Kangoo are fundamentally the same. Why did I go down the route of the 5-speed box on this? After sitting in an airport waiting for a transfer flight, going through some part numbers, etc., I sat there and I thought, do you know what, I honestly think that the Clio flywheel and clutch will go onto the Megane engine. I was like, well, how's the gearbox going to line up? Well, half the gearbox bolts are in the sump. Well, the sump's the same, the gasket's the same part number as the Megane engine. So basically what that meant was we could take the Megane engine, put the Clio 172 sump on it, put the Clio 172 flywheel on it, clutch on it, and then the gearbox would actually drop on and line up with the sump holes for the gearbox, which then gave you the top holes lining up with the blank face on the block. So then all you have to do is sort of pilot hole the block, drill it out, work up through your drill bits till you get to the point where you're ready to run a tap through the block. And then you can bolt it up. So not as complicated as you think, but you do need to put a heavy clutch in it because obviously there's so much more torque from the Megane engine, and obviously if you drive it too aggressively you're going to destroy the gearbox. The JC5 box is known for being a weak point on the Clio, so this is coming up to a year that this van's been built, and I have destroyed one clutch in it, but we're going for a really heavy clutch. Probably go for the K-Tech one, which is about 500 quid, but it's proven to do the job and to keep up with the torque, so it's all good. And then literally you can run the shocks, springs, drive shafts, everything off the 172 subframe, so you can run the dog bone mount at the back, which we just uprated with some poly bushes, and there you go, your engine's in. I mean, as far as wiring's concerned, the crank sensor is different because it goes in the gearbox. So on the Megane it sits down at the front, sort of behind the radiator, and on the Clio it sits at the top, so it's sort of down in this sort of area down here. So I thought, well, it's only a falling edge sort of sensor that reads the teeth on the crank wheel, so I thought, well, I'll just, rather than go with a standalone ECU and maybe fitting a trigger wheel or trying to work that in, what we wanted to run everything off the Megane to simplify the build, so I didn't have to go down the the standalone ECU route. So, you know, hence the reason we kept the clocks and fitted the McGann electric steering column, which was a bit of a pain in the arse, but you know, with a bit of fabrication you can get it done. I cut and spliced the wiring for the crank sensor. Hey presto, it worked. I was a little surprised. I thought it might be slightly more complicated than that, but no, that was it. We were in and up and running, so that was pretty satisfying, to be honest. A lot less complicated than I expected. I've retained the McGann radiator, the McGann intercooler. I've had to do a bit of chopping about in the front end, and I've removed quite a lot of what goes behind the front bumper, but it does look stock from the outside, so that kind of achieved what I wanted. And there's no issues with the cooling at all, because it's just all McGann stuff in there, so it's sort of designed how Renault intended it to be. I don't expect they intended it to end up in a Kangoo van, but there you go. Hopefully, I mean, that answers all your questions really. From that, I would expect you'd be able to chuck one in yourself if you've got a decent bit of mechanical skill about you. As concerns the wiring loom, I just unpeeled all the insulation off the wiring loom and just rerouted it where I wanted it to go, and then rewrapped it with loom tape. And like I say, the only other bits and bobs that you need to do are sort of the central lock-in and the headlights and the heaters, and that's where Gaz came in really, because that's a little bit beyond my wiring capabilities, to be honest. Hopefully that answers everything that you wanted to know. If it doesn't, fire a question in the comments section and I will try and get back to you on it. How much did the 2JZ M3 cost to build, and what would I have used if I couldn't find a 2JZ? Well, the what would I have used if I couldn't find a 2JZ question is a bit of a tricky one really, because I actually had the 2JZ engine before I bought the M3 shell, so it's kind of the opposite way round, I suppose. If I was forced to choose another engine, I don't know. I mean, there's options, isn't there? There's the RB25, but I much prefer the 2J, and then there's the LS engine, all the ranges of LS engines, which are fantastic engines, but I love a turbo, so probably an LS turbo if I could have squeezed it in. I think that would have probably been the only other option for me. How much did it cost to build? It depends on if you take into account man hours spent on it, you know, the price of a 2J engine, the price of an M3. You just sort of, I honestly haven't tallied up how much the car owes me. The car took me just over 2 years to build because I couldn't afford to buy the parts all in one go, and there were big decisions that had to be made on the car that, you know, it takes time to plan and make the decisions and to find the correct parts. Some parts I bought 3 times before I even fitted the part, because technology had moved on and ideas had changed. So as much as I'd like to answer that, I don't think I can really answer it. You know, I know there's companies out there doing the conversion for sort of 15 grand, but to what standard, I don't know. I mean, I have looked at quite a lot of the other 2JZ M3s and they're not really done the same as this. So the best I can really do for now is I'll give you a bit of a walk round of the car, and I'll go into as much detail as I can about what's been done, how it's been done, and why it's been done, and what parts have been used, and hopefully that'll give you enough of an insight to satisfy that answer. So there's the heart of the beast, running a Borg Warner twin scroll turbo EFR, max duty at about 1600 RPM, but it's capable of 700 to 800 brake horsepower. Happy with the decision on that. I was advised to use that turbo by Richard at Tech, and I'm very satisfied with that. We're running a Hypertune manifold, 1200cc injectors supplied by Garage Whiff Bits, which I'm sure everybody's heard of. They're a great supplier of super engine parts. Custom radiator from Colin Ray, because we had some cooling issues. Yeah, creative Ali Rads, he's fantastic. In fact, responsible for designing radiators for Koenigsegg, I believe it is. So yeah, he's very, very well reputed. As I said before, the engine bay wiring, which is lovely and tidy, it's a specific loom built for this car, was done by DWR Performance. I mean, they're my chosen mapper. There's no one else I'd rather have do the wiring and map and work on my car, really, to be honest. The intercooler, we're just running a a generic Toyo Sport intercooler. Some people might say, oh, it's not up to the job, but the temperatures are fantastic, so it definitely is up to the job. The wheels, they came from Nick Tyrone Williams. The brakes, I actually bought them second hand off a friend in London who was breaking his, well, he wasn't breaking, he was returning his CSL back to standard. So I had those off him at a sensible price. The wings are carbon fibre, and I actually found them on eBay, but they were the last set of a guy who'd had a load of sets made. So again, I had them at steel. Literally everything on the car I have chased to get the absolute best price I could possibly get on it. I mean, even down to the turbo, I chased around in circles, and eventually Whitbits came up with the best price on the turbo there, and they were £300 cheaper than the initial quote. Panels wise, front bumper, which is a cracking bit of kit, and the canards and the diffuser, the GTR M3 GTR style bonnet, the rear spoiler and the custom legs, the back bumper, which you can, I mean, as you can see, all of these fiberglass panels, composite panels, they're an absolutely fantastic fit, and they were by Matty Evans Racing. The doors are still original standard doors, just gutted down, and the glass replaced with Perspex windows all round. You'll have to forgive the dustiness of the car, but I generally only clean it down before we're going to a track day, and the rest of the time it ends up sitting in a unit which pays for us to drive this thing, so it is what it is really. Tilt and pedal box, as you can see down there. Now you could be forgiven for thinking that was a full tilt and pedal box, but it is actually not. It is a tilt and clutch and brake pedal. And then when I priced up the throttle pedal, it was just, I couldn't justify the amount that they wanted for it, for an adjustable throttle pedal. So I bought a Ford Puma throttle pedal from a scrapyard for £5, and I just made the framework up for it, which is all welded into the cage, so it's fully adjustable anyway. So it's sort of about a £400 difference in price. So there hasn't been money pointlessly thrown at this car. The money that's been spent on this car is because it needed to be spent on this car, even to the point of the OMP seats. I went down to Demon Tweaks and I tried out all the seats, and I came away with a fairly inexpensive set, to be honest, because they just felt right when I sat in them. So another thing that's been kept to a budget, got a race technology dash and the toucan display. Very, very minimal inside. The roll cage was built in-house, and that was done so because I couldn't actually find a cage that did what I wanted it to do, and I wanted it to go through the floor to the subframe points, because as everybody knows, the subframe is a weak point on the M3 generally, and they have a tendency to pull the floor apart. So we put the reddish strengthening kit in it, then we cut the floor open inside and put the cage down and through to the back of the reddish strengthening kit, and then so it's all tied in. The cage goes through to the shocker tops. The car's pretty rigid, you can jack it up from pretty much any point and it all comes up together. The suspension has recently, about a year ago, been changed to Intrax. Fantastic quality suspension, and again, it's only actually been changed to Intrax because I'd got a slight leak on my KWs, and they weren't going to be back in time for a track day, and another friend who was returning a M3 CSL back to standard had a set of Intrax that had done sort of 800 miles. They were less than 50% of the cost of brand new ones. Had it set up by Spires, who, as far as geometry for track cars goes, I don't honestly think you could beat them. They are fantastic, and Matt leaves no stone left unturned. If your car turns up and he finds a problem with it, he will not do the geo on it. He will send you away to get the problem fixed, because he just won't put his name to anything that is any less than perfect. He actually designs suspension for engine manufacturers, and if you want to buy a set of nitrons, he has his own valves designed and fitted inside them by Nitron. So that kind of gives you the level of expertise that Matt has got. Door cards from Track Car Door Cards, which are a fantastic bit of kit. In fact, they've upgraded the door cards now and are sending me out a new set, so I'm looking forward to seeing those. I will post their contact details in the description of the video, along with everybody else who helps out with the car. So people who help out with the car: Matty Evans Racing, H from Tyre City UK, track car door cards, Spires, DWR Performance, Protec. Yeah, Robert Protec, they did the fuel system for the car, and they actually do the most advanced fuel systems in the world with brushless motors, and boy are they good. Shine a little bit of light in the back here. Whoa. So you can just about see that there. Yeah, that's got 2 pumps inside a swirl pot. So it uses the standard M3 pump to lift the fuel to the swirl pot, and then it's got 2 motors inside there that send the fuel to the engine. They're actually mapped to work independently, so they can come in and out independently whether the car needs them or not. IRP shifter there. It was again cheaper option than a CAE shifter, and it's absolutely fantastic. Really short throw. I'm running the M3 Getrag 6-speed box in this car. I am not running it in the standard position that everybody else runs it in, so I've moved my engine 2 inches further back. So I've actually took the gearbox mounting points out of the floor, moved them 2 inches further back. I've lowered the engine as much as possible. I mean, I've compared this to other 2J builds, and my engine is so much lower and further back than most of them, disregarding the ones that have cut the bulkhead and moved it sort of all the way through. You know, we didn't want to go quite that extreme, but as far as using the engine bay space is concerned, that's pretty much as low and as far back as it can possibly go. I've moved the point where the steering rack mounts, I've chopped the sump and made a bespoke sump for it. On the corner weights at Spires, it ended up as a 47-53 split, which for a big heavy engine that this car doesn't normally contain, I'm pretty happy with, to be honest. It's nicely balanced on track. You know, it genuinely use all of the power. We're running at just around 650 brake horsepower and 600 pound-foot of torque. It feels very balanced. I think that just about covers everything with the car. I mean, obviously it's polybush front to back, you know, all the normal stuff that you do with a track car. That's a bit of custom venting work that we did just to force the air through the radiator. If there is anything else you want to know about the car, just chuck a question in the comments below. I'll get back to you with some answers. Hopefully that's been helpful, answered all the questions that everybody wants to know. As regarding the S14, which people have asked a few questions about, we're going to have a video dropping on the S14 fairly soon. The main thing people have asked is what's the spec on it. I'm going to do a walk round on the S14 and run you through the spec list. Well, hopefully that's answered everything that you wanted to know. If it hasn't, chuck a little question in the comments section and I'll get back to you. Don't forget to follow our Facebook, which is SMV Accident Repair Specialists, and our Instagram at SMV Repairs if you don't already, and also my editor at Alex Hart Photography on Instagram, because he is doing a great little job for us and he deserves a shout out. Thanks very much for watching, and hopefully see you again soon. Take care, guys. Bye.